get into the action with Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventure on Netflix.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous video, where today we'll be discussing and reviewing Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventure. Thanks and a massive shout out to Dreamworks Animations for hooking me up with an early copy of this interactive episode so I can bring you an early spoiler-free review to you all. Now, unfortunately, at the time of writing this review, I have not been given any official footage or clips to use within the video, and to top it all off, my webcam is currently not working either. So sadly, just for today's video, this review will only be an audio-based review and there will be no cinematics nor visuals in the background. However, that means you can give this video a listen to whilst you're doing something else, like eating, cleaning, or even potentially sleeping. I wish you sweet dreams to everyone who's doing that right now. To start off this video fresh, I can say that Hidden Adventure is so much better than the entire seasons of 4 and 5 from Camp Cretaceous, and it's a lot of fun. So let's start to review Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventure. Camp Cretaceous has previously only been a series that released season by season, but now we're introduced to our first ever interactive episode where we can take control of these characters and what decisions they make throughout their journey. And yes, before I get loads of comments asking the same question, you can make the wrong decision that ends up with the campers getting killed. So there's that. Throughout my first run, however, I am very proud to say that I only made one wrong decision that got both Darius and Ben killed by a sauropod nonetheless. However, I can assure you that there are more options just like this one. I believe that Darius can also get killed by a baryonyx if you're not careful. But when you do make these mistakes, you're greeted with Mr. DNA, who tells you what you did wrong and then it replays the correct decision that you should have made instead. That's actually a really good addition to this interactive episode, because not only are you told that you made the wrong decision, but you can also see what the right decision would have been. That way you get the best of both worlds. Now, getting to the point here, that new dinosaur we all assume to have been the Tarbosaurus is actually a Tarbosaurus. We were correct. And to be honest, it's actually a really cool addition. Some people were worried leading up to this that the Tarbosaurus would be lame and a boring smaller T-Rex. However, I thought the complete opposite after watching it. The Tarbosaurus, which is only slightly smaller than the Tyrannosaurus Rex, is very instinctive and actually acts like a proper dinosaur as if it were looking for its babies. It doesn't really feel like these stupid over-the-top monsters that we saw in Season 5, something that Camp Cretaceous did very well not portraying in their earlier seasons. Hidden Adventure feels much more down to the core of Jurassic and begins where they left off with the mood, tone and setting of Camp Cretaceous Seasons 1 to 3. Now, let's talk about the fun factor of it. As we know, Hidden Adventure being an interactive episode was always going to have some sort of fun factor, as we get to take control of these characters for the first ever time. It's kind of like a video game. But it really took me by surprise by how fun this actually was. I thought it was going to be very forced and repetitive, however, that's simply not the case. There are multiple storylines and other decisions that you could make that change what you come across throughout the story. And not only that, but it changes how you come across some events as well, that you can easily do multiple run-throughs and find interesting new little details that you wouldn't have seen prior to your first playthrough. So the fun factor of this is definitely very high and thoroughly enjoyable. In regards to canon, however, I know, a very sensitive topic, but in regards to canon, we still don't currently know from the official creators as to whether or not a certain ending is canon or certain events are canon. Personally, from what I've seen, I don't see any logical sense nor reason to say that this is canon. Maybe it's possible to say that the Tarbosaurus is canon, it did live on the island, but whether or not it appeared and chased down campers is another question. And we can also say that Hidden Adventure is canon as well, but in a sense that Hidden Adventure was always there, we just never got to see it. But this interactive episode does break canon just a few times, which doesn't entirely make too much sense to me. There's something regarding Owen Grady in this episode as well, but I won't spoil that too much. That information regarding Owen Grady doesn't really make too much sense, as it's something that was never really brought up previously and never used in the main source of films. So to me, from what I've seen, none of the events in this episode should be canon. However, things that appeared such as Hidden Adventure and Tarbosaurus could be canon. Then again, the Tarbosaurus isn't really confined anywhere as we originally thought, and it seems to be a dinosaur that just roamed Isla Nublar. So yeah, this can get a little messy when we start to discuss canon. Anyways, I really enjoyed playing around with Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventure, and that's the main thing. Not only were the decisions really fun, but there was a lot of comedic value within this episode that I actually didn't really expect. There's a lot of subtle humour throughout this episode that I also found really enjoyable and made me chuckle here and there, something that I feel Camp Cretaceous lacked in its later seasons, but it's nice to see that it has been brought back. The story of Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventure was also really good as well. Now, this episode is only 32 minutes long, so maybe an overall story turned into one season of interactive episodes may not have been that too amazing, but they perfectly balanced the story out and were able to fit the entire story within these 32 minutes. It flowed really nicely and felt as if it was one fun episode. Although, because there was no entire season to follow, it did feel like a filler episode. But I don't really say that with any negativity. It felt nice to return to the campers and the original vibe of Camp Cretaceous back on Isla Nublar. It definitely set that tone again and felt as if they could have told more story on Nublar from now. But either way, Hidden Adventure was a fun and interesting return back to Isla Nublar. The positives of this episode actually go quite far. Whilst there are the occasional choppy bits of story, I assume this is to do with the different decisions you make throughout the story. This story actually flowed very well and felt so nice to be a part of. It felt very Jurassic and exactly how Camp Cretaceous first started off with seasons 1, 2 and 3. It was fun, exhilarating, and on multiple occasions you feel so immersed in the story that you start to feel the intensity of when the Tarbosaurus is chasing you down. Two different branches of the story towards the end make you feel trapped and very claustrophobic that it becomes, as we say in England, squeaky bum time. You start to feel so stressed out and in a state of panic as things occur throughout the ending of this story, and there's sometimes next to nothing that you can do during that segment. Granted, there are some scenes that I have probably missed, as I remember seeing some scenes in the trailer that I haven't yet seen in my playthroughs quite yet, but I was really impressed by how much content there is within this interactive episode. 32 minutes? I'm sure you can spend a whole hour at least on this. Whilst this episode is only 32 minutes long, that doesn't include the replayability of going back multiple times and picking a different answer or decision to certain events. You also have to use your brain for some things as well and think back to what happened earlier on in the season. For example, in the trailer, we're met with a decision of unlocking a safe with 3 potential answers: 2005, 2015 and 2974. All 3 of these answers have relations to events that took place within this episode, so even a smart fella could pick the wrong answer here. But the actual correct answer out of these 3 is, well, I'm not going to spoil that, you have to learn for yourself. But you've really got to think deep to a riddle you heard earlier on, or something the campers discovered earlier in the season for you to get the right answer. And trust me, if you don't, that will mark the end of the campers' story there and then. That Tarbosaurus really isn't messing around. Overall, the story of Camp Cretaceous Hidden Adventure was actually really good and flowed really nicely into the events of what unfolded before Season 3 and after Season 2. There were many Easter eggs and references to previous events throughout the last couple of seasons, and even some teasers towards Jurassic World Dominion. Not connections to Dominion, but teasers. Whilst the last 2 seasons of Camp Cretaceous seemed to be in their own reality and weren't entirely very good, Hidden Adventure is to not be associated with those 2. It was much more grounded and realistic to the point as to what we first originally saw back in the original 3 seasons of Camp Cretaceous. I thoroughly enjoyed it with the mix of the thrills and laughs it gave off. So in conclusion, I'll have to give this episode either a 7.5 out of 10 or potentially an 8 out of 10. It really was that much fun, and it was something different that I really liked. Hopefully this paves the way for more interactive episodes of Jurassic shows in the future, but preferably they should really be a pick your own story based video game instead. I mean, that way Universal and Netflix won't be at my arse all the time trying to copyright my content. I know, it's weird. I wanted to treat this interactive episode as a fun video game styled playthrough where you get to see my first reactions to it, but unfortunately, I was told that would be a copyright infringement. So, going forward, I do believe that Hidden Adventure should be the only interactive episode we get from this franchise, but instead, we should have these choose your own story events as video games. That way, there's no ludicrous copyright infringement and everyone gets to view this fun content on YouTube. Well, that's my rant out of the way. But yeah, Hidden Adventure is actually a great inclusion to Camp Cretaceous. Our main question is still to find out officially what, if anything, is canon from this story. But regardless of that, it was a lot of fun, stressful, and intense at the same time, but the good kind. I can only recommend all of you to go ahead and give this a try on November 15th on Netflix once it goes officially live to the public. In the meantime, feel free to press that like button if you haven't already done so, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of the news from the Jurassic franchise as and when it comes through. Feel free to also follow my Twitter account if you haven't already done so for even more updates from this franchise that I don't entirely cover here on YouTube. But most importantly, I hope you're all staying safe out there, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye. Hello, hi, you, did you enjoy the video? Just a little reminder to press that like button and also subscribe. I just want to thank my Patreons for this month on screen right here, as giving me that little extra support really does go a long way. But anyways, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day.